program is brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?
Good evening and a warm welcome to First Issues. Thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight. Shot on location at the Radisson Blu in Sandton, South Africa.
Tonight on the program, we profile Thando Hopa, the first model with albinism to ever grace the cover of internationally renowned fashion magazine Vogue. What we now take as a pivotal point in history started with a lot of doubt and fear. But after much thought and preparation, the stars aligned to give us the first woman with albinism on the cover of one of the most coveted fashion publications.
Ending up on the cover of Vogue. So what had happened is they sent us an email requesting to do an interview and a cover story. And I read cover story. I was like, cover story, you know? And then, you know, like me and my manager, we had to ask, we're like, okay, no, all right, fine, you want to do an interview, but you said cover story, so please elaborate on that, because it's like we just couldn't believe it. They wanted to do initially they thought I was in the United States. And then we told them that no, we're actually stationed in Johannesburg. So they actually were like, okay, it's fine, we'll assemble a crew in Cape Town. And everybody freaked out. My mother thought I was going to be trafficked. She was like, oh, you know, they tell models, they send models these emails and they promise them this and that and that and that, and then they traffic them. So she was like going through a lot of heart palpitations.
At just 30 years, Thando is a globally acclaimed model, a prosecutor, writer, and an activist. The life of Thando Hopa as we know it today started in Sebokeng, South Africa, where she was born. Thando's family later moved to Lenasia South, where she was raised with 3 of her siblings and had the loving influence of her parents and grandmother. Lenasia South is a multiracial community in which Thando never felt or noticed she was different from everybody else.
So I grew up in Lenasia South. Lenasia South is a multicultural community. So you have the black community, the Indian community, the colored community. So in that kind of community, a woman or a child who looks like me becomes quite hyper visible, because everybody around you is quite, you know, pigmented, and you have a lack of pigmentation, so you are the ugly one who's that white person in each and every group you're in, you know. I mean, I looked very different even from my parents, my sisters, you know.
Thando's world was, however, turned upside down when she started her primary schooling. She says to avoid the inevitable happening, her mother made her wear a polka dress to school, just so she would think the other kids were making fun of her because of it and not because of how different she looked.
When I went to primary school, my first day of school was quite that's the time when I started realizing that, maybe I don't look like everybody else, you know. Because I mean, at that time, I don't even know if I was aware of my skin color, and if I was, it definitely didn't have any social significance to me. I was just Thando. I actually, on the first day of school, I wore a polka dot dress. So my mother put me in a blue polka dot dress, and she said, you know what, I promise you I'm going to give you your school uniform soon, okay? And I was like, okay, but I was thinking, you know, I really wanted to be in that school uniform. And then I went to school and everybody was wearing school uniform, apart from me. So when I sit down and I hear some child say, don't sit next to her, and these kids just shift away. And I sit down and I think to myself, shouldn't have worn this dress. Shouldn't have worn this dress. So I go to my mother and I say to her, I'm like, I want my school uniform, I want my... Because I was convinced at the time that it was the dress that was making people or these children act in an antagonistic way toward me. Of course I found out very soon after I got the uniform, that it wasn't the dress. And as time went on, I mean, I heard names that were being used, and it's like, how like, who are you talking about? You know, like, you know, what is that? It didn't mean anything to me until you started realizing that these words are actually words used to describe your being, you know. So this was quite a conflict for me because I came from quite a normal household. And I would leave and go out into society, which put a loaded conception or perspective on my skin.
Before ever knowing she would be an international powerhouse, Thando had long established that she would be an actress. She later became a prosecutor, a decision which was a compromise to what they had decided on with her father, whom at the time wanted her to be a corporate lawyer.
I studied law because I wanted to be an actress. My father wanted me to be an accountant, and we settled on law because we felt like it was a compromise of ideologies. So we settled in a sweet spot, and that was law. So I became a prosecutor. And I worked for the National Prosecuting Authority for 4 years. And after the first 2 years, I was in the district court. After that, I was in the regional court, and I specialized in sexual offenses. Now, in my first year of working for the National Prosecuting Authority, I got scouted by one of South Africa's famous designers, Johan.
We'll be right back shortly after this commercial break. Stay tuned for more with Thando on First Issues. We'll be right back.
When running a business means
Where did I put that receipt?
we can help you with instant accounting, free software that does your bookkeeping for you. When running a business means
Wait, what do you mean the container hasn't arrived?
we help protect your business from risk with Mohwebi Insurance. And when it means
How do we pay our staff that don't have bank accounts?
we help you make multiple payments directly to people's phones with e-wallet bulk send. At FNB, we're constantly innovating to help business owners at every stage of their journey.
Welcome back to First Issues as we continue profiling none other than Thando Hopa, a lawyer, a model and an activist.
It was not until 2012 when she was walking the malls of Joburg that a serendipitous meeting with South African fashion designer Johan would shoot her to stardom. The designer scouted Thando out of a crowd in the mall, describing the model as a light that shone at the sides of his head.
First of all, I didn't know who he was. And I think he was probably like the third person who had approached me to do a shoot, and I was just like, who is this guy just giving me this card and telling me to do a shoot? And I went back home and I told my sister that a very strange thing happened. This man who I didn't know who he was, and I said, he wants me to do a shoot. And I thought it was really a ridiculous idea. But my sister was like, I actually think that you're being quite myopic, because this is an opportunity for you to sort of show albinism in a positive way and change all the negative perspectives about it. So I went to Khad and I went with like all of this like militant, you know, vibes, and I go and I sit down with him and I say, you know what, I will only work with you if we portray albinism in a positive way. And I think that kind of became sort of my mission statement as a business without me even realizing it. I think I really went into the concept of purpose branding before even knowing what it was. And it became a guideline for me, but also it was an oversimplification, because of course when you're dealing with representation, you're not just dealing with one thing. So I was never just dealing with albinism, I was dealing with African representation, I was dealing with race representation, I was dealing with gender representation, and I was carrying that constantly, negotiating that constantly in everything I was doing. But that is a story for another day. So, and then we started kind of working on these projects, and I started developing as, just even in terms of my consciousness in this industry. And I just did a lot of things quite unconventionally.
Thando found her footing later in life that led to her journey to self-acceptance. Before getting there, she thought to change her entire look to fit into what society deemed beautiful, to change the most notable traits of her being: her hair, eyelashes and eyebrows. Thando describes this moment as one that sent a sharp pain down her parents' guts. It was not until one photo shoot with Forbes, after she started her modeling career, forever changed her perception of herself and helped her carry herself with grace.
As a child, I have my blonde natural hair, my blonde eyebrows and eyelashes, and that was it's a significantly different look from you or anybody else around, you know, because albinism, the unique characteristics about it is that you'll have pale eyebrows and pale eyelashes, and that was something that I really struggled with. I only struggled with that later because, of course, when you're a child, you're awesome, and then next thing you start looking at what people perceive as beautiful or enough or worthy, and you start seeing that whatever that is, you are not. Yes. You're not there in that representation. So I started deciding, okay, I'm going to work on a more conventional look. And that's so one day I leave home, and I leave home having all my pale eyebrows and all my pale eyelashes, and I come back home and I dyed them. And my mother was just, that's my mother's reaction. She literally was like, how? Who are you? Like, you left looking one way, you came back looking another. And I think the reason why it actually affected my mother so much is because she had tried, both her and my father. I mean, I remember once I was about 12 years old, and I said to my father, I'm tired of looking this way. I'm tired. I just want to be like normal kids, you know? And my father said, he's like, how could you say that? And I'm like, I'm not beautiful. And I'm like, I think because at that time, I mean, I was 12 years old, your understanding of attractiveness is, it's beginning to ensue inside you, you know. You're beginning to compare and contrast. And when I said that to my father, and he looked at me and he's like, Mamgwev, and Mamgwev was my clan name. And he's like, Mamgwev, I have never seen such a beautiful girl in my life. You're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. And I'm just there like, that's not true. So I think, but interestingly enough, I do think that they were trying to place a foundation that only started gaining resilience later in my life. At that time, my self-esteem was really not at its peak. So when I came back looking very different when I was about 17 or so, I think my mother just felt like, but we did everything we could, so how did we get here to a point where you still feel like the way you look is not enough? But let me tell you, I did that. I had my eyebrows on fleek, I had my eyelashes, and everything was beautiful. My peers, for the first time in my life, said to me, you look beautiful. So now this kind of imprisoned me, because now I got the validation that I was seeking, and this was amazing, you know. Then I went into, one day, after now we started this modeling thing with Gert and everything, each time still, eyebrows, eyelashes, constantly darkened, until one day I did a Forbes shoot, and I think that's the shoot you're talking about, and they said to me, oh, you could do a clean look if you like, you know. They're like, the article is about you, you know, so if you want to do a clean look, you know, you're welcome to. And I said, I'm sorry, what? what's a clean look? And they're like, oh no, you know, you still have makeup, but it just really, really like takes it down to your most authentic self. And I was honestly terrified. I was terrified because in our popular culture, I had never seen a woman who's got albinism be celebrated for the uniqueness of her characteristics, her aesthetic.
When running a business means
Where did I put that receipt?
we can help you with instant accounting, free software that does your bookkeeping for you. When running a business means
Wait, what do you mean the container hasn't arrived?
we help protect your business from risk with Mohwebi Insurance. And when it means
How do we pay our staff that don't have bank accounts?
we help you make multiple payments directly to people's phones with e-wallet bulk send. At FNB, we're constantly innovating to help business owners at every stage of their journey.
The journey to being Thando, a moment in history, did not get jump-started as easily as what we see on the surface. The journey started with Thando's team turning down some feature offers, one of which was with Vogue Italia. She says that one turned down offer catapulted her to being on other notable editorials, one being to feature on the Pirelli calendar as the first South African to ever do so, with such international acts as P. Diddy, Naomi Campbell and Whoopi Goldberg.
So Pirelli calendar was like the gentleman's club type of calendar. It was boys with cars and naked women. So most of the time, Pirelli was predominantly known for naked women. And when I saw it, so my publicist, my former publicist at the time, she was so excited and she's like, it's Pirelli, it's Pirelli. And then I looked and I saw that it had like some artistic pictures, but all the women were nude. And I was like, but they've seen my work, right? You know, and my work is not this, so it was a bit confusing for me. Okay, are you sure? Are you sure? Like, you know, you've landed in the right places, you know. And I think we went through such a, before we actually asked them, because I said to my publicist, I said, you're gonna have to ask them if I need to go nude for this. And she's like, and if so, and I'm like, you know, I believe that women should have sovereignty over their bodies. They should choose whatever it is they want to do with their bodies. And I would like that choice. And that choice for me is I don't want to do that. And I just did not want, for the first time when I did this big project, for me to do something that I did not want to do. And they were like, no, we've changed. We don't do that, don't worry, you know. And that's where Tim actually created the character, the Princess of Hearts. Pirelli was one of my favorite experiences. If I could give people a template of how to go about inclusion, that would be the template. Because by that time they had inquired what hair products I use, which kind of makeup is okay for me, how do I prefer to look, even when I remember they put me in this yellow dress and it was open all the way at the back, and the lady's like, are you comfortable with it being open? And I was like, yeah, you know, but I didn't even think about it. But for her to have the sensitivity to say, do you actually feel comfortable in what we're dressing you in how we're presenting you, you know?
Thando says before she was catapulted into superstardom, Marie Claire had approached her to be on the magazine's cover for Women's Month. As her life is a serendipitous occurrence, this cover was another orchestrated event by the universe, since at that time, the cover came as a result of her being an ambassador with car brand Audi.
So Marie Claire, once more, it was just, ooh, I don't think I can really explain how wonderful yet heavy it is to be the first person you see, to actually be that person. You know, when you're like, hey, I've never seen a woman with albinism on the cover, and then you are that person. You know, you always kind of, you are the person that you were looking for when you were 12, when you were 10. You become that person, you know. The interesting thing about Marie Claire is that it actually it was birthed from their partnership with Audi. So Audi had the Untaggable campaign, and it was talking about stereotypes. But now, interestingly, and this is something that really working with certain partners teaches you certain skills. Now, one of the taglines of Audi is progressed by Audi. And how they started changing that or implementing it, not even changing, but implementing it, is they would say, okay, let's go into progressive narratives. So they're partners that say, let's partner together in a way that enhances progress. And they were like, here's a lady who we think can really carry the Women's Month story in a progressive way. And a car brand got me into a magazine.
What other interests do you have? We've just been talking about modeling, magazines, cars.
I think writing is an interest and that developed into part of my profession. So I used to write poetry, but I think a lot of it was highfalutin, to be quite honest. Until Pirelli. When Tim said, you know, actually after that whole ensemble where I got into that mistake media meeting, then they said, could you please write for the calendar? And I wrote the closing, the opening statement was written by Edward Enenfo, who is the British editor of Vogue, or editor of British Vogue. And the closing was me. And I was like, and then after that they said, hey, can you write for our newspaper? And I started learning how to kind of listen to my truth and get it out of me, you know, get it out of me and package it into some kind of communication piece. And I think that became a humongous interest of mine.
What is the future looking like for you? Thando the brand, Thando the model, Thando the activist, Thando the writer.
I put in 2 years full of modeling. And everybody now came in and they were like, do a clothing line, oh, do whatever, wines, do that, do that, do that, do that. And I am trying to listen to myself because I want to create an institution that is transferable. Right now it's really great because there is symbolic representation, and from a symbolic point of view there is progress and advantages and all of that comes with that. But institutions allow the benefit to expand and for people to practically use whatever work you've done for themselves.
Ours was a quest to speak to an icon who did not affirm the stereotype attached to her having albinism. We traveled to Johannesburg to seek out an inspirational story for anyone who might be going through some adversities in life and feeling they might not make it. We hope our goal to inspire and spark the courage to tackle whatever goal our viewers may have, especially the hypervisible, has been achieved. That is all we had for you on the program tonight. We hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed putting it together for your viewing pleasure. Until next time, good night.
This program was brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?